So namaste everyone, and thank you for joining in this class. I apologize for sending the link really late because there was some kind of government examination in our in our state, and the state government all of a sudden decided to cut off the internet, okay, for the entire region, for the entire city. So that is the reason I got late in sending the link. Anyways, thank you all for joining in this class. So we'll just begin by the Shanti mantra that we always do. Yeah. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunakatu, Sahaviryankara Vavahai, Tejasvi Nadadhitamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So in the last class, we had discussed a few aspects related to the strength of the planets. Okay, it is also known as Graha Bala. All right, and we had discussed about the different strengths of the of the planets. The first was the Sthan Bala. Okay, so there are six different sources of strength. This is just a recap. Okay, so that you can get an idea of what we were actually doing in the last class. We did not have the class last week. So Shadbala, or six-fold strength, it refers to six different sources of strength that combine to give the actual strength to a planet. Okay, and what are the six sources of strength? Number one is the Sthan Bala, which is the positional strength. We discussed about the positional strength in details in the last class. Okay, and if someone has forgotten about it or if someone missed it, please go and watch the recordings of the last class. Okay, so today we'll be discussing about directional strength. Okay, it is known as Digbala. All right, Digbala. So Dig means direction and Bala means strength. All right, so Digbala, it refers to the strength that a planet acquires because of the direction of its placement. Okay, wherever the planet is placed, if a planet is placed in in certain conditions or in certain positions, then it is said to acquire Digbala. Okay, and the opposite to Digbala is Dikshunya. That means zero directional strength. So Shunya means zero. Okay, so the opposite position of Digbala is Dikshunya. All right, so let's come to the planets. So Digbala happens in the it happens in the Kendra houses. Okay, it happens in the Kendra houses. Just a minute. So Digbala, it refers to the it refers to the directional strength. Okay, and Digbala happens only in the Kendras. All right, it does not happen in either of the houses. So it can happen in the first house, it can happen in the fourth house, it can happen in the seventh house, and it can happen in the 10th house. All right, so we start from the 10th house because the Sun and Mars, they get Digbala in the 10th house. Okay, so you're starting with 10th house because of the Sun. All right, so the first planet to get Digbala is the Sun, which gets Digbala in the 10th house. Okay, so the 10th house, it represents the south direction. If you remember, we had spoken about what the directions that are represented by the houses. So Sun and Mars, they get Digbala in the 10th house. Okay, so what it means is that when either of them is located at the cusp of the 10th house, it receives one rupa. So what is one rupa? If anyone remembers, one rupa means 60 Shashtiyamshas. Okay, one rupa equals 60 Shashtiyamshas. So if Sun or Mars are located at the cusp of the 10th house, it receives one rupa or 60 Shashtiyamshas of strength. Okay, so what is the house opposite to the 10th house? It is the 4th house. All right, so in the 4th house, which is of course 180 degrees away from the 10th house, so each of them receives 0 Shashtiyamsha of strength, and this is known as Dikshunya. Okay, so technically what happens is that in between they receive proportionate strength at a rate of 1 Shashtiyamsha for every 3 degrees of arc. Okay, so Sun and Mars, as I said, they get Digbala in the 10th house. The house opposite to the 10th house is the 4th house. So they become Dikshunya in the 4th house. All right. So similarly, Moon and Venus, they become Digbala in the North. Which house represents the North? The 4th house. Okay. So the cusp of the 4th house gives Digbala to Moon and Venus. And the opposite to the 4th house is, of course, the 10th house. So if Moon and Venus are in the 10th house, then it is said to, they are said to be in Dikshunya. Okay, so you should not have planets like Moon and Venus in the 10th house, right? Because they are, they are having zero directional strength. Plus, they will bring a lot of difficulties in completing work. Okay, anyone with Moon or Venus in the, anyone with watery planets in the 10th house finds it very, very difficult to complete work. Okay. Then we have Mercury and Jupiter, which gets Digbala in the east. What is the east? The east represents the cusp of the Lagna. And, the sun, some astrological texts, they suggest that even the sun receives Digbala in the, in the 1st house as well. Okay. But opinions will differ. But in my opinion, the sun receives Digbala only in the 10th house. But some astrologers will consider the 1st house sun as a Digbali sun. Okay, so as I said, Mercury and Jupiter, they receive Digbala in the 1st house. So the opposite house, that means they become Dikshunya in the 7th house. So you should not have Mercury or Jupiter in the 7th house, otherwise it becomes problematic. Okay, so Saturn, it obtains full strength in the cusp of the 7th house, which is the west direction. And the opposite house of the 7th house is the 1st house. So there Saturn becomes Dikshunya. That means it loses all its directional strength. Okay. So any questions till this part? Because we are going to Kalabala after this. All right. So Kalabala is, Kala means time and Bala means, the strength dependent on time. Okay, but this time is actually, this time refers to the moment of birth. All right, so it has 9 components. Kalabala has 9 components. Okay, so if the first type of Kalabala that we'll study is the Nata Unnata Bala. Okay, Nata Unnata Bala. Okay, so Sun, Jupiter, and Venus. All right, remember these things very carefully. Okay, Sun, Jupiter, and Venus obtain 60 Sastyamshas of strength at exact local noon. So exactly at 12 p.m. of the local 12 p.m. of the of the noon, Sun, Venus, and Jupiter, they obtain a lot of strength. Okay, and again, like Digbala, Kalabala also has the opposite concept. Okay, so just like Digbala, the opposite of Digbala was the house opposite to the house of getting Digbala. So similarly, the opposite of Kalabala is the time opposite of that Kalabala. Okay, so since Sun, Jupiter, and Venus obtain 60 Sastyamshas of strength at local noon, so at local midnight, which is exactly the time opposite to local noon, they will get 0 strength. Okay, and in between, their strength is altered proportionately. All right. So again, the Moon, Mars, and Saturn, they obtain 60 Sastyamshas of strength at exact local midnight. Okay, because they obtain strength at local midnight, so they will get 0 strength at exact local noon. All right. So in this, in between, your strength is altered proportionately. Okay, and Mercury, it gets 60 Sastyamshas of strength both at local noon as well as at local midnight. Okay, so Mercury is very, very special, right? But you may ask, why does Mercury remain strength? Why does Mercury gain strength throughout the day as well as throughout the night? It's because Mercury represents money, right? Money is always power. No matter if someone gives you $100 note during the day, you'll take it. And if the same $100 note is given to you during the night, you'll still take it. Okay, so that is the power of Mercury. Okay. It does not apply to the Navamsha, Shannon. Okay, we are just dealing with the Rashi chart. Don't bring the Navamsha into this. All right. And just as far as the group is concerned, No one told me about when you want to learn about the divisional charts. So if you don't want to learn for free, then I'll put a price tag on it and then announce it as a course. Okay. Yeah. Then we have something called Pakshabala. Okay. So Pakshabala is of again two types. Okay. Pakshabala is applicable for the for the natural benefics. What are natural benefics? Jupiter, Venus, unafflicted Mercury, and the Shukla Paksha
Waxing
moon.
moon.
Okay, the Shukla Paksha moon. Yeah. So that is the natural benefit. All right. So during full moon, what happens? The sun and moon, they are 180 degrees apart. So when this happens, moon, Mercury, again, Mercury has to be unafflicted. So moon, Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus, they obtain 60 Sastyamshas of strength. Okay. And during Amavasya, that means new moon, when both the sun and moon are in exact conjunction, they get 0 strength. That means moon, Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus, they don't have any strength. And just like before, in between, their strength is altered proportionately. Okay. Again, the natural malefics. Who are the natural malefics? Mars, Saturn, and the sun to some extent. Okay, so we are not bringing Rahu and Ketu here because Rahu and Ketu don't have any physical existence. Okay, so the natural malefics, Mars, Saturn, and sun, they obtain full strength of 60 Sastyamshas when the sun and moon are exactly conjunct. That means during Amavasya or new moon. And then as opposed to the full moon, they get 0 strength. Okay, and in between their strength is altered proportionately. All right. So now the thing is, you whatever Pakshabala of the moon you obtain, okay, whatever Pakshabala of the moon you obtain, the software will show you the calculation. Okay, so for practical purposes, you just multiply it by 2 because we are having two, we are having two important phases of the moon, the dark phase as well as the light phase, the waning phase as well as the waxing phase. So to get the actual Pakshabala of the moon, just multiply the, whatever Pakshabala of the moon you are having at birth by 2. Okay. And if you want to know whether the moon is actually Pakshabali or not, then from Shukla yeah, from Shukla Chaturthi to Krishna Ekadashi. Okay, from the 4th day of the waxing moon to the 11th day of the waning moon, you can consider the moon to have Pakshabala. Okay, that is as a general rule, you can take it there. All right. So then we come to something which is called 3 Bhaga Bala. Okay, 3 Bhaga means 1/3 of anything. Okay, 3 Bhaga means 1/3 of anything. So if you know, again, this calculation will differ in a sense. It will differ for daytime birth and nighttime birth. Okay, so you have to determine the length of the day. That means from sunrise to sunset, and then divide it by 3. Okay, so if birth is happening in the first 1/3, then Mercury will get full 60 Sastyamshas of strength. Okay, if the birth is happening in the middle 1/3, then the sun will be in full strength. And if the birth is happening in the last 1/3, then Saturn will get full strength. Okay, so there is no logic of how these things are determined because this is what Parashara is saying in his BPHS and we are following him. Okay, so if the birth has happened at night time, then you have to determine the length of the night from sunrise to sunset. Sorry, from sunset to sunrise, and then divide it into 3 portions. Okay, so if birth is happening in the first part, the moon gets full strength. If birth is happening in the middle part, then Venus gets full strength. And if birth is happening in the last part, then Mars gets full strength. Okay, and the only planet that is immune to this calculation is Jupiter. Okay, because whatever the time of birth, Jupiter will always get full strength of 60 Sastyamshas under this, under this topic of 3 Bhaga Bala. So next we come to Adabala. Okay, so Adabala, it means the lord of the first weekday of the year of birth. okay, gets 15 sastyamshas of strength. So that is the reason the lord of the weekday is so very important. Okay, it determines your energy factor. Okay, it determines the energy factor, how much energy do you have to work, whether you can work or not. So the lord of the weekday has a lot of, has a lot of responsibilities. Okay, so if anyone wants to learn about this, then you can ping me privately for the Panchanga course. All right, so it's Abdabala, okay, not Adabala, Abdabala. So Abdabala, as I said, the lord of the first weekday of the year of birth gets 15 sastyamshas of strength. Okay, so you are not considering the year of the Christian era. Okay, for example, someone may be born in 1985, so that is the year of the Christian era. Okay, so what year are you considering? That is very important. So you have to consider either the year of 360 days calculated from the beginning of creation, and this is a very detailed method of calculation. Okay, in the olden days, jyotishis used to do it, but now we don't do it. All right, or if that is very difficult to calculate, if you find it very difficult to calculate the year of 360 days calculated from the beginning of creation, you can also calculate the solar year, which commences with the entry of the sun into the sign of Mesha of the Niryana zodiac. Okay, so this you can find it from the Ayanamsha or from the almanac. All right, so either of these two you have to consider. Okay, this will give you the Abdabala. Then we have the Masa Bala. Masa means monthly, and Bala, of course, means strength. So the lord of the first weekday of the month of birth gets 30 sastyamshas of strength. Okay, so again, the month in question is not the, is not the calendar month of the Chinese era or the Christian era. Okay, it is the, it is calculated from the almanac, right, from the Indian Panchanga. So it could either be one of the two. So it could be either the month of 30 days calculated from the beginning of creation. Again, the calculations are very, very tedious. Or, you can simply look into the Panchang and try to determine the solar month, which commences with the monthly entry of the sun into the, into the Niryana signs of the zodiac. Okay. Then we have Varabala, so the lord of the weekday of birth. So this I am considering according to the Christian calendar. Okay, so the lord of the weekday of birth, it gets 45 sastyamshas of strength. And then we have the Horabala. Okay, so Hora means it has a connection with your wealth. Okay, so Hora lord is a very important determiner of wealth, how to look at wealth from the Hora Lagna. Okay, so you have to determine the Hora operating at a time of birth, and the lord of that Hora becomes your Hora lord. So the lord of the Hora gets full strength of 60 sastyamshas. Okay, so the Hora is very, very important when it comes to the wealth part of it. Okay, then we have Ayana Bala. Ayana Bala means strength by possessing north or south declinations. So we'll be not going into the into the details because the calculations are very, very tedious. Okay, and if we start something, then we also have to end it. So just know that Ayana Bala is about the strength possessed by planets, due to their north or south declinations. Okay. Then we have Yuddha Bala. Okay, so Yuddha Bala is when two planets other than the sun and the moon are at the, are located within 1 degree of each other. Okay, and how to determine the, just a minute, there is a problem with the audio, just a minute. Yeah, I'm really sorry. So two planets are said to be in Yuddha. Okay, Yuddha means Graha Yuddha. If they are located within 1 degree of each other, the sun and the moon, they will never get into Graha Yuddha. Okay, and a planet with greater degree, that means whose longitude is greater, is considered to be defeated in the Graha Yuddha. Okay, and the planet which gets defeated in the Graha Yuddha, that planet will, you will not be able to enjoy some of the significations of that planet. Okay, so for example, if Mars and Saturn are in Graha Yuddha, and then Mars is defeated, so some of the Martian qualities in you may be missing. Okay, so
Sir, Graha Yuddha happens with Rahu Ketu also?
no, we are not considering Rahu Ketu here because they don't have physical
Okay.
existence. Okay, So some astrologers will say Rahu Ketu are involved in Graha Yuddha, but in my opinion, it does not matter. Okay, so next, yeah. So next we have Cheshta Bala. Okay, so Cheshta Bala is actually the strength of a planet which is retrograde. Okay, and then there are different types of retrograde motions. Okay, people say that there is only one retrograde motion, and the most common one is known as Vakra or Vakri. Okay, but there are different types of retrograde motion, and again, it's a very tedious calculation which will require a very deep understanding of astronomical principles. Okay, so we'll not go into details, but I'll just mention the different types of retrogrades that happen. Okay, so the first type of retrograde is the Vakra, which is the most common form. Everyone knows what a Vakra Graha is. It means the planet is moving in the reverse direction. Okay, the planet is moving in a reverse direction, so that is the Vakra or the Vakri. Okay, so a Vakri Graha is said to have a lot of strength. So it is the strength that Parashara assigns to a Vakri Graha is 60 Sastyamsha. Then we have the Anuvakra or the Ativakra. This will depend on the degrees. Okay, Anuvakra or Ativakra. So it has 30 Sastyamshas. Again, there is a very specific way to calculate the degrees. The software will do it for you. If you're going for a paid software, it will do it for you. Okay, so you don't have to worry. Then we have the Vikala. Okay, then we have Madhya. Then we have Manda. Manda means very, very slow. Okay, then we have Mandatara. Then we have Shigra, and then we have Ati Shigra. Okay, so these are the different types of retrograde motions that are there. But then the sun and the moon, as we know, they are never retrograde. Okay, so for the sun, the Ayana Bala and the Cheshta Bala are the same. Okay, so since the sun and the moon, they are never retrograde, so they will also have some kind of Cheshta Bala. Okay, but since the sun never can become retrograde, so it is the Ayana Bala of the sun is considered to be as its Cheshta Bala. Similarly, the Paksha Bala of the moon is considered to be the Cheshta Bala of the moon. Okay, so just a few, just one small tip that no one will mention. The sun and moon are said to be, will behave as retrogrades if there are planets within 2 degrees of each of them. Okay, if there are 2 degrees, if there are planets which are less than 2 degrees apart from either the sun or the moon, then the sun and the moon will be considered to be retrograde. Okay, this is known as Chandra Samagam and Surya Samagam. Okay, Chandra is the moon and Surya is the sun. So this is something that classical texts don't mention, but a very old astrologer told me this, and when I used this thing in my in my predictions, it became very, very clear. Okay, so next we have Naisargika Bala. Naisargik means natural. Okay, so there is a natural strength that is possessed by each planet. So how do you obtain how do you obtain the Naisargika strength or the Naisargika Bala? You divide 60 Sastyamshas by 7 and then multiply the result successively by 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. Okay, so if you multiply, suppose you divide 60 by 7 and then multiply the result by 1, you get the Naisargika Bala of Saturn. If you multiply it by 2, you get the Naisargika Bala of Mars. If you multiply it by 3, you get the Naisargika Bala of Mercury. Okay, if you multiply it by 4, you get the Naisargika Bala of Jupiter. Multiplying it by 5 will give you the Naisargika Bala of Venus. Multiplying it by 6 will give you the Naisargika Bala of the moon. And finally, multiplying it by 7 will give you the Naisargika Bala of the sun. Okay, so on the basis of this, we can actually conclude that the sun has the highest Naisargika Bala, which is of 60 Sastyamshas, and Saturn has the minimum Naisargika Bala, which is 8.57 Sastyamsha. So that is the reason the sun is known as the king and Saturn is known as the servant. Okay, so just take a break for a couple of minutes and we can resume thereafter. Okay, so Next we have something which is called Drigbala. Okay, Drig, not Digbala. People use these terms interchangeably, but they are not the same. Okay, so Drigbala is the strength of a planet based on the aspects. Okay, so the rule is when a planet is aspected by a benefic, it receives a strength of, a positive strength, and when aspected by a malefic, it will receive a negative strength. So the sum total of all the aspects on a planet will give you the Drigbala of the planet. Okay, and you have to consider the special aspects as well. Okay, for example, only the only the direct aspect of the planet will be the full aspect. Okay, but when we come to planets like Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, they will have the special aspects as well. Okay, so for example, the third aspect of Saturn, it is only 25%. Okay, 100% aspects are the 7th aspects, and then the special aspects will give you only half the results. Or for example, the 10th aspect of Saturn, okay, it is 75%. Okay, so that way you have to calculate the Drigbala. All right, so again the software will do it for you, but this is just for your information. Okay, so as I said, the sum total of all aspects of all the planets on a given planet is a measure of the Drigbala of the planet, and this can be positive or negative depending on whether depending upon whether the benefic aspects or the malefic aspects predominate. Okay, so just like the planets, the houses will also have their own strength, and it is known as Bhavabala. Okay, so again, Bhavabala has 3 components. Okay, so you have to look at the strength of the lord of the house, whether the house lord is placed in a friendly sign or maybe in a, same for Jupiter. No, it's a bit different. Okay, Jupiter is a bit different. I think I've discussed about the aspect strengths in the in the videos of aspects, but till now I uploaded only the videos till Mars. So once I upload Jupiter, I'll tell you the strength as well. Yeah, 7th aspect is 100%. Okay. Okay, so as I said, Bhava is determined, number 1, by the strength of the lord of the house. That means the lord of the Bhava will be placed somewhere. Okay, so if it is placed in a friendly house, or if it is placed in a house of a benefic, it gains strength. Okay, and if placed in a bad house or enemy house, then it it weakens in strength. Okay, then we have the Drigbala. Okay, so Drigbala, again, you have to look at the strength of aspect, okay, which is positive or negative depending upon the sum total of the benefic aspects from the planets exceeding the malefic ones, or vice versa. Okay, and then we have Digbala, or the directional strength. Okay, so for this Parashara gives us a very elaborate method. Okay, so for example, if you have to calculate the Digbala of the houses, okay, so there is a very specific way to do it. All right, so I'll just make a note of it, and maybe I'll upload it in the group later on. Okay, so you have to follow a certain rule to determine it. All right, I'll just go through my notes and I'll upload it, how to calculate the Digbala, or the directional strength of the houses, not the planets. Okay, so next, so this is about the houses and the planets. And any questions till this part, because we'll be going into the dashas now. So dashas, they refer to the time periods of a of a particular planet. Okay, it is the period of operation. Okay, and this is one of one of the few very brilliant features of Vedic astrology that separates it from Western astrology, because Western astrology does not have a very elaborate dasha system. Okay, so the horoscopic chart and the planetary positions, it will provide a static picture of the native, but then dynamism is brought about when you bring in the dashas. Okay, so the dasha is very, very important, because a horoscope may have a lot of promise, but if the right dasha is not running at the right time, then the promise will not be fulfilled. Okay, for example, suppose a person has a promise of getting married, and then the dasha of getting married starts at the age of 70. Then what happens? The person might never get married. Okay, so it's very important to get the right dashas at the right time, so that whatever is promised in your chart is fulfilled. Okay, so dashas are extremely helpful in timing of events. Okay, and several dasha systems are advocated by the BPHS and other astrological texts, but we will be using we'll be using 2 dashas. Okay, so here I'll be discussing in detail about the Vimshottari dasha, which has a cycle of 120 years, and then there is another another dasha which is known as the Chara dasha. Okay, so Chara dasha is mainly related to Jaimini astrology, but as a practicing astrologer, you must at least have a deep understanding and knowledge of at least 2 dashas, so that you can confirm your predictions. Okay, because if you're predicting by using only a single dasha, the prediction might not always be successful, might not always be good. So you have to confirm using at least 2 dashas to actually to come into a proper conclusion or things like that. Okay, so the dashas that are mentioned by Parashara, especially the Vimshottari dasha, it is always nakshatra based. So what it means is that these dashas, they depend upon the birth nakshatra or the nakshatra of the moon at the time of birth. Okay, and as I said, Vimshottari dasha is the most popular form of dasha, and it has a certain set of rules and regulations which we will actually study as we go ahead. Okay, so as I said, we will be studying the Vimshottari dasha in details, and then we can have some extra classes on learning the Chara dasha. Okay, Chara dasha is very, very brilliant. It does not involve so much calculations as the Vimshottari dasha, but it's a derivation from Parashara. So obviously, Vimshottari dasha will always be very, very important. Okay, for example, there is another dasha which is known as the Yogini dasha, which is of a very short period of time. Okay, so Chara dasha, I said. Yeah, so more than 40 dashas, Twinkleji. Okay, so you cannot memorize all the dashas. There is also the Naisargika dasha as well. Okay, that means the age, the dasha according to the age of the planets. So you need to be, you need to be competent in at least 2 dashas so that you can guide people accordingly. Okay. So how is the Vimshottari dasha calculated? We know that the 27 nakshatras, they are divided into 3 groups of 9 nakshatras, and each 9 nakshatras are owned by the 9 planets. Okay, so depending upon the position of the moon at birth, okay, so each planet is allocated a specific number of years over which it operates. Okay, and the order of the dashas is also fixed. Right. So how do you know which is the first Vimshottari dasha period? How do you know? You just find out the nakshatra of the moon. Okay, for example, if the moon is placed in Ashwini, then the first Vimshottari dasha will be of Ketu. Okay, if the moon is placed in Purva Ashadha, then the first nakshatra dasha will be of will be of Venus. Okay, that means the first Vimshottari dasha will be of Venus. Okay, for example, if the moon is placed in say in Hasta, okay, Hasta is ruled by the moon, so the first dasha that the person will have in his life is the Chandra dasha. Okay, so Sun has been given a period of 6 years, Moon has been given a period of 10 years, Mars has been given a period of 7 years, Rahu 18, Jupiter 16, Saturn 19, Mercury 17, Ketu 7, and Venus 20. Okay, so Venus is the longest running dasha for an individual, and people usually say that Venus dasha will be good, but then don't come into rough calculations without looking at the chart. Okay, nowhere does it imply that the dasha of a malefic would be good and the dasha of a benefic, the dasha of a benefic would be good and the dasha of a malefic will be bad. Okay, so depending upon the moon's nakshatra in the birth chart, the dasha of a particular planet operates at the time of birth, and then subsequent planetary periods follow according to the order. Okay, so for example, suppose a person starts his life with Rahu dasha, Then after 10 years, sorry, after 18 years of Rahu Dasha, the person will start with Jupiter Dasha. And after 16 years of Jupiter Dasha, the person will go into Saturn Dasha, and so on. Okay. So, okay, just a minute, guys. There is a problem with my video. Just blurring out. Just give me a minute. Okay, there is a power cut here. Anyways. So there is a phenomenon called the balance of dasha, and this is again calculated at if you know the time of birth. Okay, so as I said, you have to decide, you have to determine the planet whose dasha will operate at the time of birth, and after obtaining that, you have to you also have to find out how long that dasha would be. Okay, so the length of a dasha will depend upon the exact location of the moon in a particular nakshatra. Okay, so we know that each nakshatra has a span of 13 degrees and 20 minutes. Okay, so for any Surya nakshatra, this 13 degree 20 minutes would actually mean 6 years. Okay, so for the moon's nakshatra, it will mean it will mean 10 years. Okay, similarly for mercurial nakshatras, it will mean 17 years. Yes, Mercury is a long dasha of 17 years. All right. So if the moon is in the beginning of its nakshatra, so what happens is a larger portion of the years allotted to it are yet to pass. Okay. So if the moon is at the end of the nakshatra, only a small fraction of the total allotted period will remain. Okay. So this balance of planets dasha is very proportionate to the extent of the moon's nakshatra, which is which is yet to elapse. Okay, so you can calculate this from your from your own birth chart. Okay, next we have the sub periods or the antardashas within a Vimshottari Mahadasha. Okay, so what happens is for the planetary periods, a particular planetary period it may last for several years. Okay, for each planet. So as such, it becomes very, very difficult to use such a broad time span for for timing day-to-day events. Okay, so in order to narrow down the time in which an event is likely to take place, the major planetary periods, okay, they are called mahadashas. They are reduced into subdivisions called sub-periods or antardashas. Okay, so under each mahadasha, the antardasha of all the planets will operate. Okay, so the first antardasha in any mahadasha belongs to the same planet, and the remaining ones follow in order. Okay, so that is the reason why why a Rahu dasha can be so very turbulent, because not only you're having the Rahu mahadasha, you'll also have the Rahu antardasha. Okay, and that usually creates problems. Okay, so the duration of the antardashas of various planets are in proportion to the duration of their major periods. The duration of a antardasha in a mahadasha, you can calculate it, okay, manually, as well as the software will also do it. But then it's very, very important that you know the antardashas, so that you can achieve or you can arrive at a proper timing. Okay, so then we have the pratyantar dasha, which is known as the sub periods. Okay, so again you are dividing a given antardasha into sub periods. Okay, and that division is in the same proportion as the duration of the of the dasha periods mentioned for the planets. Okay, so you have to know which dasha period is applicable for which planet. The sun will have a dasha period of 6 years, The moon will have a dasha period of 10 years and so on. Okay, so the first the first pratyanta dasha in a given antardasha will belong to the lord of the antardasha itself, and the remaining pratyanta dashas will follow the usual order of the vimshottari dasha. Okay, so there are different formulas to do it, but again, will not you'll not go for the formulas, as it will only complicate whatever you're trying to learn. Okay, so any doubts still here? Any doubts for the dashas? Okay, let's proceed in that case. So one may also go further to divide the pratyanta dasha into into smaller parts, which are known as the sukshma dasha. Okay, and then the sukshma dashas can be again subjected to further division, which is known as the prana dasha. Okay, so the sukshma dasha, if you know it, and the prana dasha, they will permit very accurate timing of events. Okay, so what happens is the use of this sukshma dasha or the prana dasha, it will demand a very accurate calculating of the time of birth, which is not always possible. Okay, so you can leave these finer divisions if they are not necessary. All right. So next we come to the Yogini Dasha. So the Yogini Dasha cycle is a cycle of 36 years, and there are 8 Yoginis with a specific lord of each, and also a specific Dasha period. Okay. So if you learn yoga, you'll get 9 Yoginis. Okay, so they are known as the Yoginis of the Giri tradition, but in astrology we consider only 8 Yoginis. Okay, so if time permits, maybe I can have a class on the on the various Yoginis of the Giri tradition, and they're very easy to access because they're located all around the body. So one of the Yoginis is usually located in the in the right shoulder. Okay, so every time you feel hurt or you feel pain in that shoulder, you can just rub that specific spot where the Yogini is sitting, and you can get rid of the pain or the feeling of pain. Okay, all right. All right, so what are the Yoginis? We have Mangala. Okay, Mangala is lorded by the moon, and the duration is of 1 year. We have Pingala, it is lorded by the sun, the duration is 2 years. Then we have Dhanya, which is ruled by Jupiter, the duration is 3 years. We have Brahmari. Okay, the lord is Mars, the duration is 4 years. We have Bhadrika, the lord is Mercury, which is of 5 years. We have Ulka, the lord is Saturn, which is of 6 years. We have Siddha, the lord is Venus, we have 7 years. And then we have Sankata, whose lords are Rahu and Ketu, and the period is 8 years. So if you take the sum of this, you'll get 36 years. Okay, and if you look at it, then all the all the Yoginis of the malefics, they have scary sounding names, but the Yoginis of the benefics, for example, the Yogini related to Jupiter is Dhanya. So Dhanya is a very pleasant sounding word. Okay, so how to obtain the Yogini Dasha at the time of birth? So you can obtain it by adding phi to the nakshatra of the moon and then dividing it by 8. So the remainder will give you the number of the Yogini Dasha operating at the time of birth. Okay, and this is the same order as I mentioned. The order will not change. Mangala, Pingala, Dhanya. Then we have Brahmari. Then we have Bhadrika, Ulka, Siddha, and Sankara. So the order remains the same. Okay, and just like the Vimshottari Dasha, the balance of the Yogini Dasha must be determined from the remaining part of the moon's nakshatra. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the Yogini Dasha. You just we'll have a class on the Chara Dasha. Okay, now each Yoginis they are also said to own a particular nakshatra. Okay, each Yoginis, they are said to own a particular nakshatra. For example, Mangala owns Ardra, Chitra, and Shravana. Pingala, it owns Punarvasu, Swati, and Dhanishta. Dhanya Yogini, it owns Pushya, Vishakha, and Shatabhishak. Primary Yogini, it owns Aslesha, Anuradha, Purva Bhadrapada, and Ashwini. Bhadraga Yogini, it owns Magha, Cheshtha, Uttar Bhadrapada, and Bharani. Ulka, it owns Purva Falguni, Mula, Revati, and Kritika. Siddha, it includes Uttara Falguni, Purva Ashadha, and Rohini. Sankata, it is related to Hasta, Uttara Ashadha, and Mrigashira. Okay, so these are the yoginis and the nakshatras that they own. Okay, so not proceed further than this.
Sir, one question regarding this. What is the difference between the Yogini Dasha and Vimshottari Dasha? Like, are they used to understand different things, or are they?
No. The thing is that you will be arriving at a prediction as an astrologer, right? So, but you need to confirm whether whatever you are predicting will be correct according to the time period. For example, you may have gone to different astrologers and they might have given you different time periods, right? Some may have said that you will get married at 20, or maybe some may have said that you'll get married in your 30s. But to confirm whatever you are predicting as an astrologer, at least 2 dasha systems have to be used. Okay.
So, sir, any resources on the Yogini Dasha system that like for further reading?
I think I have a PDF of the same. I'll send it to you. I'll send it in the group. Okay.
Please, sir, because this is sounding very interesting.
Yeah, it is actually used in the Jaimini system, but we'll have a detailed class on the Charadasha, how we use the Charadasha. Okay, if you have watched the
Charadasha is not Vimshottari, the other one.
Yeah. Charadasha is the other one apart from Vimshottari.
Okay.
So we'll be considering Vimshottari as the main dasha, which is the usual way out. But Charadasha was popularized by K.N. Raoji, and it's a very easy system, and it gives a very fluidic understanding of the events that are supposed to take place. And if you have caught my previous recordings, I've used a few Charadasha techniques there, especially the wealth recordings. Okay.
Yeah, but actually, sir, I didn't know what it is. Like, there was no background to it.
Yeah, we'll have a discussion on the Charadasha. It'll make it easier. All right then. So in the next class, we will see how to interpret, the various periods of the Vimshottari Dasha. Okay, why, how. But in Yogini, 3 different nakshatra and 3 different planets involved. Yeah, Twinkle, I'll send you a PDF so that we can have a, understanding of the Yogini Dasha. And later on, when we complete this, maybe we can have a class on a few dasha systems. There is a very popular dasha system that is used by Sanjay Rath. It is known as the Narayan Dasha. Okay, so Narayan Dasha belongs to only in that tradition of Sri Ashutananda Dasa. So that can also be studied. Okay, it depends on your comfort level. I am very comfortable with the Vimshottari as well as the Chara Dasha. Okay, some people use Yogini Dasha to a great perfection. Okay, for example, Yogini Dasha is used brilliantly by some Lal Kitab astrologers. Okay, it's nowadays it has gone to Lal Kitab. In fact, Lal Kitab has made Yogini Dasha their own Dasha. People think that Yogini Dasha comes from the Lal Kitab, but it is actually a Jaimini Dasha. Okay. Anyways, so in the next class we'll have we'll take a look at how to interpret the results of any Vimshottari Dasha. What rules are associated with the with the Mahadasha or with the Antardasha, with the Pratyantardasha, and what favorable things occur if the dasha of a particular planet is supportive or it is adverse. Okay, for example, Rahu Dasha, if favorable, it can shoot you to prosperity. Okay, it can shoot you to fame and recognition. But if it is adverse, it can cause a lot of emotional as well as mental turmoil. Okay, so you can see the signature of the planets if you study the tapestry of lives of various individuals, you can see how the planets leave their signatures behind. Okay, don't have to go far. If someone is interested in cricket, just look at the the rise and fall of Mahendra Singh Dhoni. Okay, he rose to fame during the beginning of his Rahu Dasha, and he ended his career at the end of this Rahu Dasha. So that is how the planets leave their impressions on all of us, unless and until we are enlightened. Yeah. All right then. Any questions? Okay, fair enough. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. I'll see you again next week. And in the meantime, do watch out for my videos that videos are already put on your autopilot. They're just coming up as the as the schedule is. Okay. So in the next video on YouTube, I'll discuss on the 3 most important qualities of Mercury that everyone must have. Okay, so watch out for that video. Hopefully it will be useful or it will be valuable for a few of you. Okay. All right then. Thank you very much. Yeah, I am on Instagram as jyotish108. Okay. But I don't I don't post much on Instagram because my wife tags me there and it just takes the sheen out of it. Okay. So I've stopped posting on Facebook as well because of the of the people's the responses of what I get. People are not interested in learning astrology, they only want the predictions. So that is not how astrology works. It runs much deeper. Okay, so YouTube is the place. I'll be putting all my content on YouTube, and then I'm also designing a learner management system where I'll be taking my entire thing online as a e-academy or a online academy. Okay, so that is for a future thing. All right then, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing all of you the next week, and the recordings will be available either by tonight or by tomorrow. Okay, namaste. Om Gurave Namaha.